Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. In my weekly lesson of this week, I've been talking about eccentric British behaviour. We are known for being a little bit incongruent. Our heart sometimes is not in touch with our head. And I was demonstrating that by my story. I had a leak last week in my bathroom ceiling, and yet I found myself on the telephone to my landlord chatting about the weather before I was able to state the case of an emergency. We have many other examples of that. Just to give you one that I heard about the other day, was about a friend of mine. He needed to use the bathroom urgently while walking in the centre of the city. He walked into a bar, desperately trying to find a bathroom, but before he could do that, he went to the bar and ordered a Coca-Cola. And he did that just to ensure that no one saw him rushing to the bathroom. He also wanted to ensure the patron, the owner of the bar, that he wasn't just rushing into the toilet. But while he walked in the door and he ordered the drink and he watched the woman, the barmaid, filling up the glass with Coca-Cola, his need to go to the bathroom increased a lot. So remaining very, very calm and with a very calm manner, he said to the lady, "Excuse me, where is your bathroom, please?" And she told him, but by that point, of course, the drink was poured, and then he had to pay for it, which took another 10 seconds. This is a very typical story of how we act sometimes in the UK. Many of us, especially older people, feel that it's very important to create a sense of balance and peace, even in an emergency or when we have to do something urgently. Now, that's not what I'm going to be talking about today. Today, I want to talk a little bit about loneliness, because another strangely eccentric behaviour of British people is the fact that as we get older, we tend to become less and less social. There was a news report yesterday which claimed that people over 60 are now the most social in the UK. However, those figures don't contrast well with other reports which are stating that in Britain loneliness is now an epidemic. What I've understood and heard in other reports is that older people are largely affected by loneliness because we don't keep close family ties. Today, we're going to read through a news article which comes from a magazine which is called Happyful. And this magazine, Happyful, is one which we've read from before, and you can find it easily online. It's called the Happyful magazine, and in this month's issue, it's saying here that in a certain part of the UK, they've installed a chatty bench. Now, just to let you understand, first of all, a bench is another word for a seat or a chair. And there is indeed a bench in this picture. It's like one of these little seats which you can find maybe on a promenade or in a park. It would seat maybe 3 people maximum, perhaps, maybe 4 if you're not overweight. And it's been placed here to try to encourage people to chat to each other. So we're going to read about that now. So let's begin. At a time when research from Anchor, which is a not-for-profit provider of care and housing for people in later life, has found that nearly a quarter of people across the UK frequently feel lonely. The organisation has reached an incredible new milestone by installing its 700th Chatty Bench. This one is at the historic site of Bolton Abbey. It says here, one person who has already helped her community benefit from the scheme is a lady from Brighton and Hove. Helen first read about the Chatty Benches in a newspaper, and she wanted to make sure there was one in her local area. It says here, the Chatty Benches, as they've become known, help people make friends and not to be lonely. A little chat can make your day a little bit better. Helen says, in my background as a nurse, I've seen loneliness create a lot of problems on individuals' well-being. She's actually said here, I've seen loneliness wreak havoc. Wreak havoc. And wreak is W-R-E-A-K, spelt like wreck. But in this case, we pronounce it wreak. That's because it's an old English phrase to wreak havoc. She says, I've seen loneliness wreak havoc, create problems, on individuals' well-being. Its effects are the same as those of chronic diseases. These chatty benches, that's these benches which have been set up around the UK, help with that. She says, through the Chatty Bench scheme, we want to help combat loneliness and build strong community bonds. This company, which is called Anchor, has found that 3/4 of people that they interviewed believe that interacting with people from different generations is really important, and the organisation hopes that these benches could be perfect for supporting that. It says here, we know that loneliness is an increasingly big problem in today's society for people of all ages and from all walks of life. We want to create spaces where people can connect face to face again, whether this is just for a quick chat or the beginning of a real connection. The popularity of the initiative so far shows how much people want and need this. We hope that more and more people around the UK will consider installing their own place to sit, their own chatty bench, and help us to grow the movement. Okay, I think I need to take a step back here and explain a little bit about this. So what she's saying here is that they are installing a number of seats up and down the country, and these seats are called chatty benches. The idea is you sit on them and that someone will come along and sit down next to you and start talking with you. Now, for me personally, I find that concept absolutely frightening. Now, I do know that this is aimed at older people, and from what I can pick up from this article, these chatty benches are going to be placed in rather affluent areas where there's little old ladies walking their dogs. But in the places that I know around the UK, I really don't think this is such a good idea. If I'm in a park and I sit down and someone comes and sits next to me, I'm immediately going to be very suspicious. I'll be observing the person's body language and what their intents are, and probably I'll get up and walk away, unless the bench, of course, is very, very big. These benches are designed to hold 3 people, But because of our desire for independence and personal space, usually only one person sits on them. I'm sure you've all noticed that on public transport these days, especially here in the UK, when someone sits on the bus, they take up 2 seats. And the only place you'll really find people sitting next to each other comfortably is on an airline, because that's the only time we have no choice. It's not just here. I think that's probably the same where you are. So, what they've done is they put seats up and down the UK and a little note on them to say, you can chat to someone here. And they're calling this project Chatty Benches. Chatty being the adjective. Now, I'm not sure what you think of that, but for me, it doesn't go well. It doesn't sit well with me. I think it is important for older people to be more social, and it is important. But, well, my feeling is if I'm lonely and I want to talk to someone, then I have to create that space. I have to make a place where I can meet other people. There's many clubs around already. I just need to join one. And if I don't do that, then I can create my own. Now, I'm very lucky because I get to talk to loads of people every day online anyway. And that really enriches my life. And that's part of the reason why I do it. But real people, yeah, well, that is harder. I do go out and mix with some people. I force myself to do that at least twice a week. And of course, even these days, I'm getting texts and sometimes even calls from old friends because I've been reigniting old friendships that I'd forgotten about in the past. But the buck rests with us. The responsibility is ours. So if we have a problem in our lives, we need to change it. And as we're older, sometimes it takes a lot more energy to do that, but it's just very important. This is one eccentric behaviour of British people that I want to share with you today. And that is our profound sense of isolation. It's very normal here in the UK to go into a bar and find many people sitting alone, drinking alcohol alone. Now, whether you agree with drinking alcohol or not, at 11 a.m. when you find a group of men and women sitting alone having a beer, it does make you wonder, really, about the way we live. It's very common here to walk into a bar and to find a man sitting alone reading the newspaper with a cup of tea, a hot chocolate, and a whiskey, and he'll take a little sip out of each one. Sometimes you'll find a man with a beer, a whiskey, a tea at the bar, and he'll take just a little drop as he reads his newspaper. For him, that's fine because, of course, we don't really taste alcohol. And the only way we really socialize with people here is if we're out to get completely drunk. Our social habits have changed over the years, and where there's a university town, of course, things are very different. If you go to central London, it won't quite be the same as I've described because people are there, there's tourists there, it's more diverse. But in the countryside, our eccentricities are very, very clear. So, chatty benches, putting a seat in a public place and giving British people permission to sit on it by saying, this bench is where you will talk, I don't think is the best idea because it's fabricated, it creates pressure, and there's nothing natural about it. However, I am sure that some people from the local church, or maybe some other people who just want to have a natter. A natter is how we describe little chats with our friends. I'm sure some people will be doing that. Well, that's it from me today, just touching upon the eccentricity of British people. Remember, when you do come to Britain, we are a bit of a strange bunch. Before we do anything, we talk about the weather. You know, if you go out for dinner, the first thing the waitress is going to say is maybe try to make you feel more relaxed by giving you some small talk. Hi, table for two, is it? Just over here. How was your day? Miserable weather, isn't it? We can talk about weather in any circumstances. Before bad news, before good news, in emergencies, before we eat. It's all a little bit strange, but it's to make you feel comfortable. It's our way of saying, look, I'm calm. If there's anything you need, ask me and I'll try to help. And if you do that also, it's a way of letting the restaurant know that you're calm and a nice person too, and that you're not going to cause any problems. That's the idea behind it. It's just a little impersonal introduction. It's rather weird, but yeah, it's the way we are. In busy places, people sometimes don't use small talk, but I like it and I often instigate it. Even before I start talking to you about English in English lessons, you may have heard me talking about the weather. It's not just because I want to hear you speaking English, it's just to make you more comfortable. That's it. See you soon. Bye.